Good
Sure.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Start.
I'll be presenting with the case of lump in abdomen today.
Mm-hmm. Just have
So, shall I
the
start?
yeah. Can you on your video, if possible?
Okay, sir.
The rest all can have their mics muted and videos off. Okay, please start.
All right, sir.
Yes, please start.
Okay. My patient, Mr. Raghav Kumar, a 30-year-old Hindu male, working in a company at clerical position, has received formal education up to 12th class, residing in plot number 4, sector 10, Nerul, and hailing from Bihar, presented to the surgery OPD on 7th of September, with chief complaints of lump in abdomen since 3 months, pain in abdomen since 2 months, and loss of weight and appetite since 1 month. Patient is a known case of pulmonary tuberculosis 1 year ago, and he did not complete the treatment for the same.
Okay. See, Mira, like every
ODP?
time, no. Hello.
Yeah.
Always when you start the ODP,
Yes, sir.
you give a context that my patient was apparently all right 1 year ago when he first started
Yes, sir.
having.
I'll start like that. Okay.
Okay, please. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I should not be mentioning that he is a known case of something which is significant.
That is later on, no? Initially, you have to create a background, and then you can
Later
tell.
I'll mention, but then again to create a background. Okay, fine.
ODP, remember.
Patient was apparently all.
Yes, go on.
Okay. Patient was apparently all right 3 months back, since when he first noticed a lump in right side of lower abdomen, incidentally, which was painless. Initially, it was of size of a lemon, but now has increased to the size of an orange. It was hard and mobile initially, but has now become non-mobile. There are no secondary changes like any ulceration or fungation, etc. He did not have any other lumps in the past, and he also complains of low-grade fever and malaise throughout. Patient also complains of pain in the abdomen since 2 months. Pain started after the occurrence of the lump, which was insidious in onset, progressive, and colicky in nature. The pain is diffusely present, and he cannot pinpoint the location of the pain. It is non-radiating type, and there are no aggravating or relieving factors.
Okay.
Patient also complains of loss of weight.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Patient also complains of loss of weight and appetite with decrease in the meal intake. The
Okay.
patient did not for similar complaints in the past. History suggestive of etiology. There's a history of altered bowel habits along with pain in the abdomen since 2 months, but which is on and off, and he himself is not giving the history of this.
Okay.
There is no history of passage of fresh blood in the stool, mucus in the stool, or tenesmus. There's no history of worm in stools, no history of vomiting or ingestion of outside food very frequently, no history of acute abdominal pain episode in the past, no history of scrotal swellings, no history of trauma, and no history of multiple or any atypical swellings anywhere else on the body.
Okay. Now tell me, by asking this negative history, what all different possibilities
Yes.
we have ruled out?
Firstly, when I asked about the passage of fresh blood and mucus in the stools or tenesmus, it rules out carcinoma of the colon.
Okay.
Then, okay, when worms in stool, I asked, then obviously of any infective etiology, or when I asked about the vomiting and ingestion of the outside food, it rules out the infective pathology, like any other bacterial or anything. And then acute abdominal episode in the past, like appendicitis. If there was any appendicitis and because of it, there is a lump in the right hypochondrium. And
This
then
is
no scrotal
right
swelling
iliac
because
fossa, na?
any, yeah.
Hmm. Then
Then no scrotal swellings because if any testicular tumor is there, then there can be lymphadenopathy, which can also present as the lump.
which lump?
No. As in, if there is any testicular tumor, so
Hmm.
because of that, there can be lymph node enlargement. So it can also present as the lump in the right iliac.
Okay. Okay. What else?
And no history of trauma because hematoma, if there's any.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Anything else?
And no multiple or atypical swellings to rule out any lymphomas or any other conditions.
Okay. 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 So what do you think here is the etiology in this patient?
Here in the etiology, because he gives the history of he had pulmonary tuberculosis an year ago, and it was not what we say, it was not completed. Treatment was not completed, and along with
Hmm.
it, along with the lump, he has the history of loss of low-grade fever, loss of appetite, and diffuse pain, which we can attribute to the obstruction because of the TB.
Okay. So you are suspecting intestinal tuberculosis.
Hyperplastic, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Go on.
History of complication, just the patient is anemic. History of past medical illness, the patient is known case of pulmonary tuberculosis 1 year back, for which he did not complete the treatment. There's no history of hypertension, diabetes mellitus, or any other major illness. There's no surgical history, and there is no significant family history. Personal history, sleep is normal, appetite is reduced, his bladder habits are normal, but the bowel habits are altered, and there are no addictions.
Okay.
I'll start with the
So
general examination.
so from history, what is the provisional
Okay.
diagnosis now?
That it could be a hyperplastic kind of ileocecal TB because it is in the he's saying it is in the right part of the lower abdomen and it is a mass. So because of the like lymphadenopathy and the hyperplasia, there can be a lump like.
Okay. See, you can tell about the ileocecal tuberculosis forming a mass. That is okay. But
Okay.
can you tell
Mm-hmm.
about whether it is a hyperplastic or any other type on history?
But if it was ulcerative, it wouldn't be presenting as such a huge lump which is increasing in size.
Okay.
And if it was
Okay.
any other, like
No,
he
when no,
wouldn't.
what I'm saying that when you are describing, you mention it in the last. First, what you will mention that
Okay.
my most probable diagnosis provisionally on based on history appears to be ileocecal tuberculosis could be due to of hyperplastic nature that you can mention. When you mention
Okay.
confirmatory, no, that may happen when you are actually completing the examination, not just on a history.
Okay.
On history, what is your
Yes.
first gauge? It is ileocecal tuberculosis. What type and other things that
Ileocecal
we will
tuberculosis.
see. That will be actually
Okay.
coming into when you are completing the clinical examination, not just on a history. Still, if you want, you may
Okay.
mention it, but in the last, that it could
Okay.
be hyperplastic. But then the examiner will ask that how come you are so sure? And naturally, you will say
Okay.
that I would like to do clinical examination. So that is why it is better
Examination.
to stay back and mention it when the complete clinical diagnosis, when you tell finally. Okay.
Okay. So the provisional diagnosis will be suspicion of ileocecal
Sickle
intestinal TB.
tuberculosis without any obvious GI
Okay.
complications. Means there is
Okay.
only one
Noted
local
down.
complication that is a mass formation. Besides that, there is no
Mm-hmm.
major complication. And he is, as you said,
Hmm.
maybe a little anemic. Fine.
Anemic.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now proceed to
Yes, sir.
examination.
General examination. My patient is conscious, cooperative, and well oriented to time, place, and person. He's averagely built but poorly nourished. He's at present febrile. Pulse 72 beats per minute taken in the right radial artery with normal force volume tension and bilaterally equal, no radiofemoral delay. Blood pressure 130 by 80 mm of Hg in right upper arm in supine position. Respiratory rate 17 per minute, and it is abdominal thoracic type. Pallor is present. Icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, and general lymphadenopathy absent. No other abnormality is found. Okay.
Okay.
Local examination. First inspection. Contour of the abdomen is normal. There is no generalized distension or scars
Okay.
or
Now,
dilated veins or sinus.
wait. Which position is very important?
Standing. First, I'll examine in the standing and then supine.
Okay. So you please mention it in the beginning that initially
Okay.
I have examined the patient in standing position and later on re-examined in supine position. Then you start with the standing.
Okay,
With adequate exposure
okay.
and maintaining patient's privacy, I am now inspecting his abdominal cavity or abdomen per se. So what are the findings?
Okay. Okay, so contour of the abdomen is normal. There is no generalized distension or scars or any dilated sinuses or veins. Umbilicus is central and inverted. Now, first I'll perform the Carnot's test to find out where the lump is located exactly. So
No.
for that,
Just wait. Now see, assume your patient is standing position. So first finish whatever is obvious in standing position. Because once patient is supine, you should not make him again stand to pick up some point. So whatever possible points
Okay.
that you need to finish in standing position. Okay. So you can start, you may mention that there is no apparent visible swelling located in the right iliac fossa. Now here you can mention all the medical terminology. It is the iliac fossa, for example. Right? So there is no, but however, I could appreciate area of fullness if the patient is a little bit thin. In an obese patient, you will not be able to appreciate anything, neither fullness nor swelling. But in a thin patient, relatively, there's a possibility that you may appreciate area of fullness in the right iliac fossa. That you have to mention. And then you finish whatever is possible on standing. So what is possible on standing? That all the otherwise occult or subclinical hernial sites will become more prominent, or it will be more seen. So umbilicus is normal, as I said correctly. Rest other hernial orifices are within normal limits. There is no other obvious swelling anywhere else appreciated in the body or in the abdominal cavity. And renal angle are normal. There is no swelling there also. So you have to inspect all around. And lastly, of course, you need to inspect on mention when the patient is standing. That is the Furcow's node. That is the left supraclavicular nodes. So once that is complete, then it becomes fine. And of course, when the patient is standing, you have to also inspect the external genitalia, because one of your possibility was a testicular tumor. Understand?
Yes.
So you have to mention that thing in the last, maybe testicular tumor, supraclavicular lymph nodes, any fullness in the flanks, renal angle, hernial orifices, okay, and no obvious means distension of abdomen, thus ruling out any free fluid or ascites in the abdomen. That is on inspection. Now you have to re-inspect the patient in supine position. So you have to understand all these points in the standing position, and now you will make patient and you will try to again compare with your findings, that if any finding changes when patient lies in supine position. Okay, so accordingly you have to take. So you have mentioned a few points, but try to mention this also.
Okay. So first, when I inspected the patient in the standing position, the lump was not very clearly seen. It was just an area of fullness. The surrounding area was normal. All the hernial orifices were normal. There were no other lumps anywhere. There was no cuff impulse. There was no any renal angle tenderness, and the external genitalia was normal, and there was no gross distension of the abdomen. So now I examine the patient in the supine position.
Correct.
Okay. So first I'll perform the Carnot's test. So I'll ask him to bend forward, like his head and the abdomen upper part. So when the muscles are tensed, it will give an idea about where the lump is exactly located. So when I asked him to do the same, the swelling is visible in the right iliac fossa, but which decreases in the size after the test.
So what is the interference, or what is the inference in
That
this?
it is lying below the muscle fascia.
So it appears to be totally intraperitoneal, correct?
Intraperitoneal, yes.
Yes. Okay, fine. Next.
Okay. So now the swelling, it is a solitary swelling, diffuse, skin colored, approximate size of 7 centimeter by 6 centimeter by 4
This you have started
centimeter.
the palpation now?
On inspection only.
But can you see the swelling as such in patient in supine position, which was otherwise not evident in standing position?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
it
fine.
was.
Okay,
Visible.
okay. Fine. Go on.
Okay. It is globular, smooth. Overlying skin is normal. There is no visible sinuses, veins, pulsations, or peristalsis seen. And it does not move with respiration. So now, palpation. Temperature over the swelling is normal. It is non-tender, and all the findings on the inspection are confirmed. The swelling is hard in consistency. There is no skin fixity, and it is fixed, like restricted mobility, and it does not move with respiration, and there are no pulsations or peristalsis over the swelling. It is
Okay,
non-reducible, non-compressible.
now the restricted mobility is in which plane?
In both the planes.
So you can move longitudinally and horizontally both.
Yes, sir.
See, when you're saying ileocecal tuberculosis, now cecum is relatively fixed. Okay, it's not like ileum
Yes.
and it is mobile, so you can appreciate like that. So when you mention the patient swelling is mobile, you have to be extremely careful. Now when you're mentioning it is
No.
hyperplastic tuberculosis, so that whatever lump formation is done, so that will not be that much mobile as what you have interpreted. So just try to correlate it,
Yes,
whether
sir.
it is really mobile or it is just, see, there are two things. One is actually true mobility, like this, completely mobile, all around, like a breast fibroadenoma, freely mobile, or a lipoma, fine. And second thing is, it's like a pendulum. The base is fixed here, but the swelling moves, gives a appearance. And it is moving, but it is actually not. It is not moving like this. It is just going here a little bit. It's like a stock is there and it is there. So try to figure out what it is, and accordingly you tell. So it is just
Sir,
like a
I actually
pendulum.
mentioned it is I mentioned it restricted mobile or mobility or fixed, because in books it is given as these swellings are fixed. So
So
fixed
then,
only.
then you don't mention the mobility. No, it's fine. You have already mentioned it's a hard swelling, so it is not applicable. But the moment you say it is a mobile swelling, then the examiner will get alert. And why she is saying, because earlier you mentioned it is for suspicion of ileocecal area. Second thing, it's a hard lump. Third thing, it had increased in size. So it is not fitting into a classical mobile abdominal lump per se. Okay. So you then accordingly tell. If it is little bit mobile horizontally in one plane, fine, that you can tell.
Okay.
So
So
what
no
was it?
skin fixicity, it is fixed. It does not move with respiration. It is non-reducible, non-compressible, and non-indentable. So now palpation of rest of the abdomen I'll go to.
Okay. Can you distinguish between these two entities that you just mentioned? Reducibility, indentability, and compressibility.
Okay. So reducibility means when I when I when the patient will stand or anything, it will be a lot prominent, and it will be a prominent. When it lies down, it will be completely invisible. But compressible means just when I press it, it will disappear. But the moment I release my hand, it will be back. And indentability means the lump will be there, but the point where I'm pressing it, only that part will have the like indentation.
Okay. But indentation, the main difference in just these three is for reducible swelling. The swelling will reappear when the initiating factor comes into play, such as coughing. That is why hernia is a characteristic example of reducible swelling in earlier part or earlier phases. Once it becomes irreducible, it is different, but otherwise it is a reducible swelling. It comes out when patient coughs or there is a raised intra-abdominal pressure. Now for compressibility, as you mentioned, it is a hallmark for any vascular swelling. Fine. So the moment you compress, swelling will totally go inside, but the moment you release, it will spring back. That springing back, it's a phenomena which is related to a vascular swelling. And third thing is indentable. Now, what is the classical example of
Mm,
yes?
I don't remember, sir.
See, usually in an elderly patient comes with a left iliac fossa swelling and little discomfort. So you have to rule out loaded colon. Fine. With fecal matter.
Sorry, what? I couldn't hear you.
Loaded colon. Okay. Loaded sigmoid colon. That is a characteristic. And that fecal material is an indentable material. So when you put your fingers or press, there is an indentation. And it takes a very, very long time to indentation to completely disappear. So that is a classical example of indentability. So that is how you distinguish between these two, or these three rather actually, reducibility, compressibility, or indentability. Now, if none of this is applicable in your given swelling, you can just omit it. There is no need to just mention it only for the sake of mentioning.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
Then I'll go to the rest of the abdomen palpation. It is palpated quadrant wise, and all the quadrants are normal, non-tender, and there are no other swellings anywhere. The liver is not separately palpable. Spleen and kidneys are also not separately palpable. And that's it. Then the percussion.
Yes.
There is resonant throat over the swelling, and there is no free fluid in the abdomen.
Okay. What else?
Auscultation, no audible bruits on the swelling, and the normal bowel sounds are heard over the abdomen.
Okay. And what else you would like to
Rectal
do?
examination.
Yes, yes.
Sorry?
Yes, tell that. I was going to ask same
Rectal
thing.
examination. Okay. There's no tenderness or pelvic deposits, and also there's no fissure in ano or fistula in ano.
Okay.
Rule out Crohn's disease.
So lastly, when you're actually doing the focal examination, also mention the external genitalia. There is no testicular lump or testicular tumor per se. Then you check doubly the hernial orifices for the major vessel pulsations.
We mentioned those things while standing, right? We mentioned them when the standing examination was done.
But that is on inspection. No? You didn't palpate that time. Just on inspection. So you have to confirm now, lastly. Now you are giving a final diagnosis. So once you're giving final diagnosis, everything should be clear.
Okay.
So just mention as a protocol.
The external genitalia is normal. Okay. No renal angle tenderness, no cuff impulses seen. So now the diagnosis. The patient probably has the hyperplastic type of ileocycle TB, secondary to his problem of primary TB, which he had an year ago.
Okay, fine. So now how will you manage the patient henceforth?
So first for this, we have to give the antitubercular treatment. Like we have to complete the course of it. And if there are any complications, we have to operate him.
Now, as I told everyone, when I ask them how do you manage the patient, please start with investigations first. Okay. Don't jump to any treatment. Sir. First, complete all the investigations. Now, here, what investigations are important?
First, blood will do CBC. We'll see lymphocytosis. ESR, it will be raised. Chest X-ray will do. USG abdomen will do. Chest X-ray. Barium enema, and if required colonoscopy, CT, and if required we can also do FNAC of the mass and stool culture for the FNAC. Bacteria.
FNAC of mass?
Yeah.
Why?
So I don't know, it was mentioned a lot there, that's why I'm not sure about it though.
Okay. See, first and foremost, let us take small things. Now first, the complete hemogram. And what is the importance of complete hemogram or CBC?
Here, since the patient is anemic, we'll get to see about the hemoglobin and all count. And then it is chronic infection, so there will be lymphocytosis.
See, what is important you need to mention is more than hemoglobin, his hematocrit is more important for chronic conditions. Okay, hemoglobin may vary a little here and there, but his hematocrit is very important. Second thing, as you mentioned, there could be some infection, so you have to check the differential count also. Third thing, you have to also mention about the platelets. Fourth thing, you have to mention about the patient's ESR, so whether ESR is very high or low. Now, suppose you're suspecting is tuberculosis, or for a matter even the malignancy, it will be quite high, like we discussed earlier, triple figure ESR. So this is very crucial that you
Yes,
need
sir.
to mention these findings. Then we have to move for the other investigations. If anything else in the biochemical remaining, what is remaining? How old is the patient?
30-year-old.
Okay, so assume that he is not having any other pre-morbid condition, but only the
Yes,
tuberculosis is
sir.
a contributory. Now, important here, you need to do liver function test completely because you have to start on say anti-tubercular treatment. So liver has to be normal. He has already taken AKT for some time, so we do not know the current condition of the liver. So LFT, complete LFT is very, very crucial. What else?
LFT, RFT.
Okay, RFT is also crucial, BUN creatinine.
Yeah.
RFT, if not complete, at least mention about BUN and creatinine. Third thing, you mention about the
Okay.
triple H. Okay, suppose you want to intervene anything, triple H has to be ready. Then,
Then chest X-ray.
okay, so biochemical over. Anything else in biochemical you want to do?
If we find fluid, ascitic fluid, then we can tap it and for ADA to be more specific for the diagnosis.
Okay, so fluid cytology and fluid routine macroscopy. It will tell you the clear picture of what it is, whether it is transudative or exudative. First thing, the proteins and ADA levels. Okay, they're very crucial to come to conclusion that it is only tuberculosis. Then,
Okay. Then for the abdomen, we'll do USG abdomen, barium enema.
barium enema. Barium enema. Anything else you want to do?
Yes. Then X-ray abdomen, that
No, no, no.
characteristic pulled up cecum we
No,
can
no.
see.
Why did you mention barium enema?
To see if there are
See,
any other like obstructions in.
no, but here you are looking at the junction. Fine. So we'll understand to
Hmm.
complete normal pathophysiology. It has to be from ileum, ileocecal junction, cecum, then ascending colon. The natural progression of the disease, you have to study the pattern, how it goes. The reverse way you may not be able to understand unless the valve is damaged. That is the ileocecal valve or junction is completely destroyed. It's a different story. You'll get a patulous IV ileocecal junction and dye will easily go inside. But still you cannot comment on much on the ileal part because there the dye is what we inject is a limited one, mainly to study the large intestine. That is a barium enema. So here what you should say, which investigation, if at all you want to mention barium, then what, which one is?
Barium will follow through.
Yes, barium will follow through. That is what you are supposed to mention, if at all you want to mention. Now, on barium will follow through, what all findings you are anticipating?
That there will be slower progression of the dye in that area, or probably filling defect also if the hyperplasia is a lot and there is the lumen is obstructed.
Mhm. What else?
Hmm. Then
Anything
because of the
else?
fibrosis, then cecum can be pulled up, that pulled up
Hmm.
cecum.
Hmm. So, what are the classical features on barium of ileocecal tuberculosis? Tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sir, I'm not sure. I just know pulled up cecum and
Okay,
there will
pulled
be
up
filling
cecum.
defect.
Cecum will be contracted. Then there is a obtuse ileocecal junction angle. And what is the normal angle? See, this is a cecum, this is ileum. So usually it is acute angle. It becomes this and then it becomes obtuse. That why cecum is pulled up. So it's a pulled up cecum, hitched up cecum. Cecum is contracted. The ileocecal valve becomes patulous. There is a reflux. Then the ileocecal junction becomes obtuse. Okay. and there is a thinning of the terminal ileum. Okay, these 5 points you have to mention, and you may or may not see the appendix, because as you are aware, in 3/4 of the time it is behind, so it may not be visible. But these 4 or 5